Really superb period style work here, Andrew. It's really a lovely arrangement, and I feel that it really digs into the the feeling of the era. You really make an effort here with your natural horns and natural trumpet. You know, I'm going to give you some evaluation notes here to start off with right at the beginning. But I just want to let you know, despite a lot of the feedback I'm going to give you, I feel that this is an extremely strong, just very spot on kind of arrangement, and I think you have a real feel for this period. So, so let's start off with just talking about the brass here. With the way that you've got trumpet in F, and by the way, for anybody out there watching this along with me, this is like a high trumpet in F, right? So the pitches that are written sound up a fourth from their written pitches, whereas for the F horns, they sound down a fifth, right? So this C would be F below middle C, would be those pitches, right? And these G's would be like a C octave, with this top note being like middle C, right? And then, of course, the horns in C basso, that's like also transposing, but it is like sounding down an octave. All right. The only thing that I would say is that, like, with all of these options here, with the tuning of these instruments, I think that there are definitely places where you could add a touch of melodic horn or melodic trumpet, right? It doesn't have to be very much, but just a little bit, right? I felt that you held back a bit, and there are some places where, where there's tension in the harmony, where it's completely okay for there to be some stopped pitches in your horns, right? And I think, like right in here, for instance, you could bring in your horns a bar early, and like even having the F horn contribute in here, and having it play like a few stopped pitches to contribute, to push some of the tension in the harmony here. Now you were very restrained about it, and so I don't want to try to rewrite your piece for you, right? Or say you must do this or you must do that. But I'm just saying you have the options of doing that. Right? You've got timpani, and it's pretty sparsely applied. I think that you have more opportunities. Though I love this little splash right here, this little fit of temper, right? It's perfect for this little part right here. Yeah, and then here, dum bum bum. Might Beethoven have sat on that C, bum bum ba bum? I think that there are some opportunities for the timpani to contribute a little bit more. See, like I'm not saying a lot, but and then here, of course, like on these last chords, no timpani. Couldn't we have a nice rich F F F F here at the end? All right. So those are my general notes. Now let's talk about some specifics, okay? I shouldn't just scroll like this. I should try to page down it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about these da da dum. So I'm noticing, if you look at the piano score here in this C section, the middle of this C section, Beethoven's very careful in this section and also in the E section to for these two parts to be different in register, right? He starts off in a sort of a middle register, and then he jumps up to a high register. And I feel that the way that you're stating it, you are giving up a chance to add contrast and drama, right? There's something very dramatic about the way that this climbs way up and then suddenly it's high, right? whereas it's lower to start off with and more brusque, right? Now, if you're doing that because you wanted these pitches to make more sense, don't worry about that. All right. There's no reason why you couldn't like invert this and have this F sharp be a stopped pitch down here. Right. Okay. And then jumping forwards, we have the same situation at bar 90 something or other. Here we go. Yeah. So here, like you already go to the highest option possible. I'm just kind of flicking between two screens here. Forgive me. Right. Like the first time, this is an octave lower, right? So you just go straight to, even though this melody doesn't really lead so high, you just throw in the highest possible option, and then when we go to the next screen, it's exactly the same thing. The only difference is higher basses, right? So you might want to rethink those, right? So these opening this opening kind of expanded evaluation is purely to try to help you get this piece ready for the stands, right? I mean, I think it is pretty much ready for the stands as it is, but there are a few things that you could fix that would make it even better for the players and conductor and everything else, all right? So that's why we're putting this at the beginning, and then at the end of this evaluation, I will have this list of cautions of possible changes up on the screen just before the thank yous to the patrons, right? To the Patreons. Okay. So now let's jump back to the 30s here. Okay. All right. So here, I feel a duet for 2.5 bars of these runs, while it is possible on bassoons at this tempo, it's not very clean. Do you know what I mean? It's like it'll have a kind of a growly edge. And then like when this same section appears much later, right? We have the problem of the players running out of breath, right? It just really does go on and on. So my recommendation for you is to break this up into bite-sized pieces, right? If you like. You could do, like, say, first bassoon goes to here and then dovetails just on this note, on a 16th note with the second bassoon, right? And then dovetailing to the first bassoon and so on. Maybe do it by the half bar, right? And then, like, right here at the end, this could be just, I would say, first and then a duet here, right? Then there's a couple other little fidgety things. I see exactly what you intend here. You want this bowing pattern where it is like everything's been going up, down, up, down, up, or down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So here you want down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, right? Okay. I mean, yeah. I don't think, though, as convenient as that might appear, I don't think that that's what Beethoven would have done. I think Beethoven would have simply had a slur over this and then, then basically just down and then down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, right? And just caught the end here as an extra bow stroke, because I just think it makes much more sense. Like, you have so much slurring across here, and I'm not, you have so much slurring across here that there are very few instruments that are actually articulating on the downbeat. I think that it's important for your melody here to articulate on the downbeat because of the kind of pacing and regularity that there is inherent in the music here. Okay. Now, there is another little thing here. Yeah, so here you've got you've got your horns coming in very, very nicely, by the way. We only have like one stopped pitch, right? That's this A flat right here. And then, some minor correction here to the B flat just to get it in tune, right? But that's normal in any case. So here, with these horns kind of going, kind of barking away here, it's really going to get in the way of this melody, especially like considering how much help they've got from your middle winds, right? So I would really strongly recommend that this statement here in your first violins be octaves, right? So that would be, you'd have the doubling on the top from the duet flutes. You don't really need any lower pitches here to help out the the first violins. But if you really want to, what you could do is you could score first violins in unison with the flutes and second violins taking the first violin line, right? And then these pitches could be these pitches right in here could be in the violas, could divisi in the violas. Yeah, and then I would just leave it up to you to solve this problem here. Right. I guess this could continue to be divisi and violas. All right. Okay. Now there's just a couple more little things here. Yeah, so here you've got a slightly awkward G flat here, right? And what I'm thinking about here is horizontal continuity, and it's completely possible. It's not a hard note for your bassoonist, but it's just, the flow is kind of weird. They got this boom, so it's like it would be smoother if you were to, since this pitch is being doubled anyway in second oboe, you could swap this around so the first clarinet is playing the written D, and then the second clarinet is playing a sounding G flat, right? And I think that would solve the problem. And then you could just have your bassoons play unison on this E flat here, and that the flow would be much more even, right? The part of this is that it's just the difference in color and the difference in effort, right, to play the note, right? So it's not the cleanest, like the way that this is scored. It's just not but that note just sort of, it will stand out in color, right? It's just not the most even kind of thing. It's, yes, sure, of course. Like, I'm sure there might be bassoonists out there rolling their eyes and saying, "Of course I can play that." Of course you can play that. That's not the point. The point is the evenness of the timbre throughout this, because you've got this really cool thing going on, which I'll talk about when we get here. All right. Just a few more things. Bar 98. Let's jump ahead here a little bit. Yeah, okay, so here I feel that this is just a little weak, right? Because of the motion of the second violins and everything else, right? And it's, like the second violins are just like right on top of the first violins. The violas, they don't really need a huge amount of help just yet. But what I would say is bring this in a bar early, right? And then leave it here as well, and then have like your first clarinet player double the violas just for this one last beat, right? So you got this cumulative da 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 da, right? And it's just, there's more clarity to this. Right now, this is just, it's very weak in your mock-up, and it will be weak in performance. Your mock-up is not lying to you in this case. All right, a little bit more tweaking here. You missing some slurs here? All right. It just feels like this is This is missing some stuff. Okay, so just a little bit of perspective here as a string player. Long slurs, not the biggest problem, but shifts of position are difficult, right? So it's better to take to slur these by the beam group, right? So like this is one finger position, this is another finger position, this is, and then so on. So like I would say, and then especially this, da 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 da. This is not a very clean shift of position. So while the shift of position is easy to do, is to jump down there in time to grab this on the next semiquaver, it still is not very clean in terms of the slur. You see what I'm saying? So what I would say is, from this point forwards, slur by the beam group. Okay, now thinking before, right? All of this stuff is very smooth because it's all sequential, right? So I think that it's not, pretty much you are slurring by the shift of position, more or less. Not entirely, but more or less, right? So it's going to be a lot cleaner. But I would say you could introduce like slurring by the beam group as early as back here if you wanted to. Okay. All right. Now, let's jump back to the beginning. All right, back to the beginning again. So those were my enhanced evaluation notes, and I was anticipating to supply more depending on the need of the orchestrator. But here I'm not really seeing a huge amount of need. You got so many things right here, Andrew. This might end up being a shorter evaluation video than usual for these longer videos. So that's not an indication that I was that I just didn't have enough time to spend with you, but it's more just that you got a lot of things right, I feel. There are still a few little adjustments and things, we'll talk about those as we go. But I feel that it's just very, very strong. All right. So let's start off here. We're gonna totally play by the rules now and check out each section in turn. Starting with section A here, the Adagio cantabile, and nice slow tempo. So notice how this worked so well. It has that same meditative feeling, right? Like some people mark this up to 60, and that's not an Adagio, really. To me, it's like andantino or adagietto, or this just really needed to have that very slow meditative kind of feeling, and you didn't fall into the trap of making this into an eighth note. Of course, you could have added fermata over and under, right? So those are a couple more little notes that you might want to add to your notebook in case you decide to try to get this performed or recorded, or even just like in a reading, because I feel it's really strong, Andrew. I mean, it is pretty much ready. Like I said, it's practically ready to go to the stands. There's just a few little things, right? So, this would definitely have to have, the little under fermata. Same thing here, over, right? Okay. Yeah. Now, as far as like these blank bars are concerned, you might as well. It's better just to have this, right? It's better for these players are not really counting, right? Like the only person who has to worry about this is the first violin. So if you wanted to put this in the first violin part, that would be fine. But I don't think they even need that, right? Because they are going to get the cue from the conductor. They've got all the conductor's love right here at this double bar. So I would say just make this into a bar rest with a fermata over it, okay? And you don't have to do anything fancy like this. Okay. Now, the question of like the scoring here, I feel it's very strong and it's very simple. It's a bit Brahmsian, really, although it does fit into the Beethoven period. Brahmsian because like he loved this combination of the lower winds all working together, in 4-part harmony. And he even starts one of his symphony movements that way. So yeah, you interpret the opening, you sort of transcribe it onto there, and then we've got the F octave, the top note of the F octave played by first horn, and then the lower note played by second bassoon. So that is also quite valid. Yeah, and I feel that has a beautiful balance. Now, it's also good that you didn't try to adjust the dynamic here. The players will, the horn player will know to hold back, whereas where the mock-up doesn't, right? Like if you really wanted to, you could like get into the mix here and like adjust. You could like let's see, let me open this up, right? So here's where the horns are, right? So you could adjust the horns down a little bit, right? It's really ridiculous how they totally boost the instruments that need the least amount of help, right? Whereas in a period kind of orchestration like this, the strings should be really boosted, and the horns and the winds should be back a little, and the horns should be back a lot, right? But it's all right. You made it work in the mock-up quite well. So I feel that this, to the question of does the intro set the mood effectively, I feel it's just beautiful. It's very much, Beethoven collecting his thoughts. That's really what we needed here, right? It's just the sense that the maestro is about to embark upon a walk around Vienna, or maybe he's composing himself to improvise something, or to compose something on the piano, or just to think about about his music, things like that. So I think you capture that really, really well. So yeah, so really no notes, it's good slurring. So I think it all works perfectly fine. So let's get to here, and I want you to think about the possibility that this division of bow is going to end up with a little too much emphasis down here, right? So you're having a longer up bow, and the longer up bow may result, especially as it jumps down, may result in more emphasis than you'd like, right? So it'll be like this, ta 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 ta. There'll be like a right? Might be better to divide it by the half bar, like you've got it here, right? Ta 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 ta, and that like mixes the registers better, right? This is interesting how you've decided to slur ta 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 ta. It's all fine with me, just as long as you are aware that that is going to result in a kind of a paced sound rather than the really smooth, flowing sound of the left hand of the piano. But it makes sense in a few places more than like just with your choice of pitches. It makes sense more than just having a general slur, like for instance right here, right? So, does the melody start with elegance? I would say if you just change this a little bit, and that'll be the most elegant of all. It doesn't matter that the slurring will be different here in your first bassoon and first clarinet. Yeah, and I like this little dun 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 dun. Yeah, it's just really nice. All right. So, is there a natural flow to the accompaniment? Yes, like with the way that you've scored it, I would say. Yeah, it's interesting how you got the unison bass notes here, right? And then the the cellos sort of arc upwards over it. Right? That's just a really lovely idea down there. So that's the next question. Do you expand without clogging up? Yes. Is there a natural transition to octaves? Yes, right, to both of those. And with the support that the flutes are getting from below in bassoons and clarinets, like just the harmony above, right, and then also the absorptive quality of the first violins, right. Then this will have a beautiful radiant sound, right. There's one tiny little thing, and that is with this. Yeah, this might be overdoing it a little bit. You know what I mean? But it's okay because of the role that this plays in terms of like taking over that voice that's in the accompaniment rather than just being a lock of like a quadruple octave here. Right? So I feel that it works really well myself. I'm just saying, some other people might worry about it. I don't know, but I'm not. Okay, so that ticks that box. Really, really nice. Melody starting with elegance, natural transition to octaves, really nice. Okay, so now contrast with theme? Question mark. One little note here. Put back the Leggermente. What'd you take it out for? It is why did Beethoven mark Leggermente here? It's because he wanted the players or player to be in the mind state of showing this kind of deft, agile persona, right? It's more than just playing the notes. It is playing them with a certain attitude. You take that attitude away and you're not going to get it, right? So put it back in. All right, Leggermente. Nothing is hurt by leaving it in, and much is hurt by leaving it out, I feel. All right, so put it back in. So here we got, first clarinet, answered by bassoon. And do you require any harmonic support? You add some here. Okay, which, very simple harmony. Right? And then the same thing here. And I feel it's very effective. And minimalist as it is, it still is just very beautiful. Now, you didn't contrast between the lines, like, put this into flute and, that into clarinet or something, I feel it's very effective all the same. Okay. So now, emphatic color of line. This is all great, except one little thing is you should tell your players how loud you're going to get. And then you should ensure that this is a crescendo to a piano subito, right? Because otherwise, your players may pull back right at the last minute so that they can make this piano sound natural, right? Da 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 da. They might go ta ta ta, and if that's what you want, put in your diminuendos. Right? There was a version. Was it was it the last score I looked at, or a couple ago? I think it might have been Jesse's. I might be wrong about that. If so, I apologize, Jesse. But there was an entry recently that pulled back right at the last second and that went to piano. So that can be really effective. But even at that, you should tell us how loud to get, right? And where does the crescendo? Does the crescendo go all the way to the end of the bar? Does it go to the middle of the bar? How big does it get? Does it go up to mezzo forte? I would say at least, right? Because you want to sit on this, right? You want this to be, and then in that case, you could just do away with the crescendo mark and just put in a plain old hairpin, right? I would say mezzo forte by the fourth bar, by the fourth beat, right? Or maybe by the middle of the bar, right? You'll already have plenty of energy. In the middle of the bar, there'll be a lot of energy on these lower pitches here in the first violins, right? Because they're going down to their kind of that very rough fourth string. And, here, da-da-da-da, the flute's going to lose a little bit of energy here. But since it's starting off piano and everybody's starting off piano, this can make a difference. This can make a difference. It's not so low that it won't contribute. And of course, like in the position that it is here, it's very similar to what you did before with the flute. This is like the case of the disappearing flute, right? The mystery of the disappearing flute. This will get absorbed into the sound of the violins, anyways, right? And which is fine. And then like you let go of it here, and you don't continue on with the whole thing, tracking this from above. So I think that that's actually beautifully done. If that was your intention, then you achieved it. But once again, crescendo, how much, and then piano subito if you don't have a diminuendo. All right? Okay, so very important note. One last little thing I'd say is that, seeing as how a lot of Beethoven's slurs in his piano part are phrase marks, really, because he is writing slurs on a percussive instrument, right? So each one of these pitches in this little chorale here are, they don't slide into each other the way that winds or strings would, right? So he's really going ting ting ting. So if you wanted to just get rid of the slurs here, and just like think of the drama of that. Singing in a slurred way and then in a non-slurred way, it would be like this: ta 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 ta. There we go. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you can emphatically state something if you want to. You don't have to, but I'm just saying, like seeing as the articulation of the source instrument is quite different from strings. Yeah, and this is really lovely. So you end up in the strings, kind of where you started. Right? Now, there are a few things I didn't touch on. I just want to say the horns here are just really beautifully done. Once again, minimalistic, and I think they fit beautifully. And then the lower winds here. It's a really great way of connecting the intro to the opening, right? And then ending with just strings. I feel that this is just your sense of proportion is really beautiful in here. But put the leggermente back. All right. So really lovely. Those are my thoughts about section A. Now, section B, we have a fresh color, right? Fresh new color. The oboe finally gets its little solo. Da 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 da. It's just our sweet, rosy-cheeked little child, right? And he's running off with a cookie or something. I don't know. He's being very bratty and introducing a new sense of tension, right? And it's like, and then the rest of it's like, wait, come back with that cookie, right? Everybody's chasing him around the yard, and he's laughing and munching on the cookie as much as he can before they can get it away from him, right? So it's just so charming. And so simple and so much so very Beethoven-like, right? And I really love the way you bring in the flute above here. That is also a beautiful Beethoven touch. The harmony coming over the top of the melody in symphonic scoring. So yeah, so complementary timbre here with the bassoons under the so double reeds under double reeds. You check that box, right? Beautiful. And then, da, 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 da. And then here you just you went for very, very simple, da, 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 da. I would say you might want to, just to ensure so that this will not be mistaken for unmeasured tremolo, I would say write out the first four semiquavers, right? And then just go to I would say, first four semiquavers as as their own thing, and then and then you could just have a dotted half note semiquaver and so on from that point on. But just really just illustrate it for the players, because that one rehearsal may be the only time you ever hear this piece, right? Like if it's a reading, right? So you just really want to solve all their problems for them. So there's absolutely they don't start going unmeasured tremolo here. Right. Now here, there's some slurring across the pickup, and that's fine because of the way that you have the way that you have, worked out the expansion here. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah, and this is really lovely. The way that you interpreted the pattern. First flute, and these, these semiquavers in here. I'm starting to say semiquavers instead of 16th notes. Living in the Commonwealth has corrupted me. And this is just all really lovely in here. Just the reverse order here, violas and violins, making it always a harmony below. All right, so now just to point out one little thing for you here, Andrew, if you haven't heard me mention this in my previous evaluations. The chord, the original chord that's played here, is black keys on the outside of the hand and a white key in the middle on the G double sharp, correct? And then the following chord goes to just a plain old G sharp, right? So it's all black keys in that sense, right? So what I feel Beethoven is suggesting here in the context of the piano playing is that the middle note is what's accented. Right now, he doesn't write that in his score, but I think it's pretty obvious. So the way that you got this in the horns, by the way, is just really exceptional. I think it's just wonderful. So you got this, so stopped, open, stopped, open, stopped, open. That's exactly what I did. Now keep in mind that this A here is also going to be stopped, right? Or I think is this a half stop and this is a 3/4 stop or something. I don't have all the stop positions memorized. But then, you've got it doubled by cellos, and that's fine. So you might not even need to accent the bassoons, is what I'm saying. Right. To maybe put the focus on if you put the focus of the accent on the A flat in the C basso horn and cellos, then you don't distract from it in your bassoons, right? You just really leaves the emphasis on the dissonance, right? While all this other flighty stuff is going on. But leave the bassoons as they are. I think that they're beautifully done. Okay, so this is really, really lovely. You have all these things widening the gap, right? Emphasis on the alternating middle note, right? Very nicely done, right? And then gap widening further. Check that box. Spreading the harmony, right? Check that box, right? And you don't leave a hole. And here you go to tremolo and a timpani roll and so on instead of having a trill. And then that's perfectly fine. A lot of times, Beethoven is, he'll trill on a cadence in a place where in like a symphonic score he wouldn't do a trill, right? That to throw the trill into the cadence in a orchestral work I feel is more of a romantic thing. I'm not saying it never happens in the classical era, but I just feel that it happens a lot in the romantic era, right? It's good push right here. I love the way that you hold off on the crescendo, right? Just exactly the way that it is in the piano score. And then, just as I said before, you can come in with your horns on the dissonance, with stopped pitches, and you could add more horns if you want to, right? These could be G's in your F horn. And by the way, this is another little thing, right? All right. Just make sure that it's marked in the in your little your abbreviations past the title page. Okay, so yeah, I just feel this is really strong scoring in your winds, and nice the way that you're keeping your strings to single pitches. There's a lot of there's you focus your strings on fewer pitches. There's very little divisi. In fact, I don't know. I think there is divisi somewhere, but I didn't really I didn't make a note of it mentally. But Yeah, but like letting the winds do more of the stretched out harmony and limiting the strings to fewer pitches. That's also very very Beethoven, right? That's he saw the winds as the harmonic resource a lot of the time. Yeah, and this is really nice. So no notes there. You didn't leave a hole. Very good. Okay. And there was no issue with dovetailing and so on in the because you didn't opt to do a pattern. So this is great. All right, so now for the C section. All right, so do we have a new quality of tone here? That's the first question, and that is yes, yes you do. You've got you've got flute finally playing a solo, right? And Beethoven flute solos are just so awesome. Some of these slurs are they're a bit droopy. Is that something you might want to? Oops, that is weird. Sorry, let me get back to this. All right, some of these slurs are a bit droopy, so you might want to yank them up. Where there was, yeah, here, look at this, droopy, droopy. Try not to have the top of the slur touch the highest note in the middle, right? All right. All right. And this is all fine. All played under a single slur. And then complementary color, exactly right, using the clarinet under the flute. And this way it doesn't obtrude into, like when the when the flute dips down into its middle register here, the clarinet doesn't obtrude into the flute space. Right? And then this is really lovely, the bassoon coming in under it. And this is an example of going all the way up to that, up to around G, without it feeling, feeling a little awkward, right? Because you've got the horizontal continuity. Yeah, and this is really lovely. These little touches here in the viola, so it's exactly the right instrument. And then just da da da, these little triplets here, very Beethoven-like. Bum 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 bum. Right, and then here, the answer, right? Contrasting timbre was my question. Yes, you do it. Now, clarinet does the answering statement with its, is this complementary or contrasting? And then, like, you use bassoons again, which I feel is very strong because it's in the first place, it's the only thing that you could do besides just adding and having a clarinet against clarinet, right? So it is contrasting with the clarinet, and it's just that same really great register for the bassoon. That little tenor as an accompaniment is a really lovely color. And then once again, violas sitting on that middle C. So that's really really just very nicely scored, right? Now here is. We're getting to that same spot where I feel that if you just drop this an octave and then come back with this as it's scored, then I think that this would just be much stronger, right? And then you could even, like, here we're looking at a G fifth, right? So this could be played, so the D, what you could do here, call me crazy, but you could play this as a G octave, right? Oops. Sorry, I didn't mean to save your piece. I'm saving it in other ways. Okay, so I would say make this a G octave. Just drop this top note down to G below middle C, right? And then reconfigure this. You could bring this F sharp down and have it as I think it's a half stopped note, right? So that reconfigures this, right? And then you could have like your bassoon, like just don't have the octave here, and then just bring the bassoons up, right? Right. Drop this down. Right, so you know what I'm saying, right? I'm not going to sit here and reorchestrate it for you. You got the right idea, but like I would say, don't have it be identical both times because nothing changes. Do you see what I'm saying? Like Beethoven is all about the progression of the idea. So here I feel like this callback isn't really saying anything. Beethoven was a master of anticipating trends that are even modern today, like minimalism, right? Change through repetition, right? So he could repeat something, right? Have it be obstinate, right? Ostinato. He could have a repeated thing be obstinate, but the obstinacy is a sort of a statement of an emotion, right? But I'm not seeing that here. I'm just seeing the same thing in the same register orchestrated the same way twice, right? So drop this an octave, please. I would say, and then I think you would immediately see the emotional arc. All right. Yeah, so this is all fine, I feel. Okay. I almost feel like this is weird though, like slurring up to this D and then dropping down to this A. What if you were to do this? Okay, wild idea. What if you were to have the clarinet play up to here, dovetail with the flute? This way, this arcs up right up to this flute note, and the flutist can put energy in it to give it continuity to this note here, this melodic top note. And then the first clarinetist can catch their breath and then play this A, right? Just because the way you have a few of these things where, yeah, like here, you have this drop here, right? So maybe this could also be rewritten a little. All right, so just think about that. Okay. All right, now just, like you have something that's very close to perfect already. Let's see if we can make it even more perfect, right? Okay, so now continuing on. Let's make that a little higher. A little higher. Okay. Okay, and then here we've got the, once again, I've just like I said before, it's better to trade off. You could have like second bassoonist start this and then first bassoonist play this and then second bassoonist play that and so on. You could have them trading off by the half bar. That's probably the best way to do it, right? Rather, I think when I did my preliminary evaluations, I said, okay, well, have the first play this and the second play that and the first play that or whatever. I think it's better to do. It might be better to do trade off by the half bar. Okay, because you got your cellos here to cushion this. Now look at this. Look at this weak looking slur. Okay, that's better. Something else you could do just to make it look better. Just go through and find your droopy slurs, and that's something that Sibelius really should automate, is not to have droopy slurs. Okay, and this is rather clever. Like when I first looked at this, I was saying, "What? I don't think this cross voicing is really that necessary." But I could see what you want here is that B flat, just to continue, or B natural, and then continue on to a B flat in your second oboe, right? And then first oboe jumping from G up to this F, right? So that makes total sense. Yeah, and then just like I feel this is really nicely done. Right. Now you do end up with an enclosure here of the second flute, all right, and it's barely going to work. I'll just warn you, all right. It would be much easier for the players if this final note was an E, right? And it wouldn't hurt you at all to swap these, to have this go to an E, and then that E be the C, right? But I see what you want. You want to get that kind of mixed color with them interlocking, but just be careful about enclosing a lower flute note, right? Remember, stop burying your flutes, right? This is barely going to work because everybody's playing pianissimo, but still with all of this activity going around, right? It's gonna be problematic. And then da 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 da. Okay, great. So in yesterday's evaluation, Jesse's, I kind of spaced out. I was so excited evaluating his piece that I forgot to jump back and start comparing, the different sections, the A section with the beginning of E and so on. So we're gonna do that now because it's just, I think it's just a better it is a better approach. So this D section we will evaluate last. All right. So let's go back to remind ourselves what Andrew did here. Right. So we had this da 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 and so on. We had the little ta ta ta. Da da da. This nice triple octave here, and the winds, and the cello's harmonizing below here, and then clarinet answered by bassoon, and so on, and then ya da 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 bum bum. All right, so just lock this in your mind, right? So we're gonna go and look at the same section at the beginning of E. All right, so here we go. All right, so we can see that it's scored similarly, right? We've got we've got a lot of the same elements here. In fact, it's pretty much identical, right? The only difference here is that the slurring is different in the cellos. There's absolutely zero reason for you to do that, and you should fix it back. Maybe this is something that you had intended to do, change your mind, and then forgot to fix this. Change it back, put the slur here to make the bowing more even, right? I mean, there's a thing about even bowing, and that is that it gives the player the most options for inflection and expression and control, right? So if the lengths of the bows are even, it gives them certain options, right? Like for instance here, like the more up bow that they can get pushing into this crescendo, the better it is, right? So but at the same time, I wouldn't move this slur back to here and then cut it for the first, right? I think I would want the, they can push into a down bow, but then the slur pushing out, right, of an up bow gives it the most strength. And then here, this being all down bow, that works beautifully on the diminuendo, right? It's just the natural way that the bow wants to work. Okay, and more lacy slurs. Okay. So yeah, so identical, more or less, right? And that, okay, now, so remember back at A, we had clarinet answered by bassoon, right? Okay, so now here we have clarinet, we have first clarinet and first violins, right? So we've got a kind of a cushioned sound. And then just answered by bassoon. And then here you just add flute on top. Right? So just like you keep it simple, right? So that the focus is on the idea. So this is one aspect of Beethoven that, like, when he withholds innovation from his scoring, it's because he wants to put your focus on the idea of whatever, if he's progressing the harmony here, right? So that's perfectly fair. All right, so and then jumping back, I'm sorry, just keep jumping back, but here we've got the this part right in here that we had actually really, really nice support of the harmony, setting up the next thing and so on. And we had a crescendo. I said you should say how much and so on. Is this subito piano. All right, and then we add the flute over the top, right? So now that gives us the context for this right in here. So yeah, so you just really went to town here with the triplets. And once again, I said, like, look, either have octaves in your first violins, or make these two parts divisi in your violas, and have this part be your second violin and an octave higher in your first violins. Right? That's another way of making it really strong against this sort of barking triplets. Aha, see, that's a good band name, the Barking Triplets. Yeah, and then I think you have enough harmonic support here, considering the triplets and everything else, the middle strings. And then once again, if if this is going to be up and down kind of bowing, ta 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 ta, then do we want the slur ta ta ta? So once again, think about whether or not you want to slur these things or have them be separate little statements, as they are in the piano part, right? In the original piano part. That's why really getting the context of how the piano sounds. Right. And then here you just have these big full, these big octave chords transcribed really nicely, for this tutti. And then, I just really feel that there's, is there an option here for timpani at all? Remember, you get up to 3 timpani, right? So is it possible to have one kettle just tuned to one weird pitch, right? Like just say like B flat, right? You could going bum 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 bum, which I think would underpin this beautifully. Right, and then bum dee da 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 dee bum very very much fourth movement of the Third Symphony, right? Yeah, it's Beethoven being funny, right? And I think that you capture that really nicely. And then fix this. This is just a little, this is awkward in the way that other G, that high G wasn't, right? In that other part. Yeah, and this is all fine, the way that this is all scored, right? Yeah. Yeah, I feel that your proportions here are really nice. Like if you look at the piano score, it's like loud, soft, loud, soft, loud, soft. But you basically you really temper the middle of this, so that that makes these proportions work better, and it sets this up better symphonically, right? So good work, Andrew. And then just a little bit of this blast right in here on these sounding Fs, written Cs. You could. This is another place where you could bring in like your you could bring in your. I think that like this is a place where is there a role that that could be played here by your F trumpet melodically, right? Could it be playing this A, B flat, C, right? Because you've already got support on this note here, right? And then the C horns could be, handling maybe C's and B flats and so on that we see in the other parts. So, anyways, I just think there's more opportunity here, and there's opportunity here for timpani as well, as I said before. And like if you have one of the pitches tuned to B flat, then you can get some of this. You can cover some of this down here. F and B flat, right? You'd be going F, B flat, F, and the F gets absorbed into the sound of the A. Right? Okay. And this is just really lovely. Just the da da da. And then here you reverse it, which I think is really funny. Winds, strings, winds, strings, winds. And that sets up our little sweet-faced child here. Our innocent, bratty little child. Okay, so now let's go back. Let's jump back and look at the beginning of our B section just to refresh our memories. Right, we have our fresh-faced child playing the little oboe part with a little support from bassoons below, and the flute's coming in over the top, and we have this strategy here, and this descending here. It was one of the rare times when I would say slurring across from the pickup across the bar line would work in a Beethoven thing. And then this interpretation, the bassoons here, you could leave the accents off, and then this really nice push right in here with a bit of F trumpet, the C horns, and the roll and the timpani, right? So everybody keep that in their mind. Now let's jump forwards. Okay. So da 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 dum, bassoons, right? So as you can see that that's the same. Da dum da 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 dum. Yeah, and then just coming over the top, like, and then we have the same thing. So like you kind of take the same approach as before, right? Right, and then once again you could leave off the accents. You could just, we've got the same exact thing happening here in C basso horn, just a snarly stopped pitch going to the open C, right? And then with this, I would double this at pitch, right? Just bring up your cellos. Don't worry about it. It's okay for the cellos to be an octave higher, right? If you really want this lower pitch, give it to the double basses, but still make your cellos double the C basso horns, I would say. That's my suggestion for that part. But this is all really great right in here, this reinterpretation. Yeah, and then just like this is very much just a kind of a transcription of what happened before. Yeah, this is ridiculous. F trumpet is going to be able to play a high sounding F with no problem. Okay. This is their specialty, is actually these higher pitches. They have a beautiful high clear sound. The high F trumpet. Right? And then once again you could bring in more tension right in here with your C basso horns, right? And you could start a bar earlier when we start to get into the dissonances or the odd harmony as compared to all this beautiful consonant harmony that precedes it, right? Okay, so check box on that, right? So now let's refresh our memories about the C section, right? That's not intended to be a medical term. Da 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 da. So we had flute with a little bit of help from clarinet and bassoon at the end. This little da 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 dum with the lower strings, and then clarinets answering da 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 da, and so on, right? And then clarinet and so on. Yeah, okay. And then flute going over to clarinet, going over to bassoons, and so on. And this really lovely harmony, which we touched on, yeah, with a little, the little offbeat or upbeat, I should say. Little touches. Okay. All right. So now that's sort of the same thing happening again. Flute, clarinet, supported by bassoon. Right, so this is lower pitches, right? So this is nice, like over the throat tones, lower clarino of the clarinet, and middle register of the flute. So like you get the change of register, which I think makes it valid enough as a callback, right? And then just like kind of lower tenor register, bassoon, and so on, and then clarinet playing over that same range as the melody. Yeah, and the bassoon in the same place. Right, and then why? Why does it have to be so high? Why so high? Well, what if this was just down an octave, right? And what if this, the clarinet led to it? Right? And then yeah, and this drop is not so bad, in terms of just like the continuity and everything. And then then jumping higher here, I think that works really nicely. And then and you could, just like I mentioned before, you could bring in other stopped pitches and so on if you wanted to in your horns. All right, and then we've got kind of the same strategy as before: flute dropping over to clarinet. And then coming in here, but this time we've got our second violins, right? Now I already mentioned what I feel like, like this needs a bit more support, like this should be supported by oboe, and this is fine on its own. And then here we need a little bit more push, so clarinet, right, adding to that. Yeah, and then this is really lovely right in here, the function of the clarinets, the oboe right in here, and with a doubling the first violins and so on. This could be one long slur here. Yeah, first oboe, right. Right, and then Yeah. Da 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 da. Plink, plink. Yeah, and this is just really wonderful here. Yeah, and you'll go to put the slurs back in here. Go to slurring by the beam group, and I think that it's just has much more drive, right? And put in some timpani here, right? You got your F kettle. Put in your F bonk 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 bonk. So I think you've got an. I'm just gonna go to. Yeah, so you've got a G and a C. You don't have an F. Maybe you could be using your C kettle where you use your G and throwing in an F and a B flat. Or you could have four kettles. Yeah, that's fine. So just go G C F B flat or sorry F G B flat C. All right, and just use it a little bit more. I think that wouldn't hurt anything at all. All right, so now let's jump back to section D. All right, so my criteria here is, is this reminiscent of the opening altered to fit the melody? Is it more intimate? I mean, it has qualities. I think this is really clever in here, the way you use your horns, like using that seventh and then yeah, and then the C's in both parts. It's a kind of a little mind twister. Really lovely. And yeah, and this absolutely should be ta ta ta. Because then I think that digging in here, which is what will happen if you go down up, is a mistake, right? Ta, ta ta ta. You lose the subtlety and therefore the intimacy, right? Ta ta ta. Then this should be the crescendo. Da 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 da. Bum bum. I love the little touch of support here on flute. If you choose to go with oboe instead, you'll get a nice, bright, warm sound. But since we don't, this is more romantic rather than it's a romantic feeling, right? Rather than just a classical brightness. I think that flute works better there. Yeah, and then the simplicity here is beautiful. The bassoon and doubling the cellos and so on. And yeah, don't go ta ta ta. Go ta ta ta. Right? Yeah, and this should be slurred as well. Da, da, da. Yeah, and then this is very, very cool. And yeah, and a nice solid bum ba bum da 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 da. What if you just got rid of the slurs here, right? And then that would make that much, much more emphatic. And I just feel that this is a soggy. This is like the Soggy Bottom Boys. Ta 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 ta. It's just like it's like a it's like a ballet bar move, right? I forget that. I used to play for hundreds of ballet classes. There's a dip on with the knees, right? That's what this feels like when you slur like this. Maybe it's better just to get rid of the slurs here, especially because you have so much emphasis here in your in the timpani part and so on. Yeah. Then bum da 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 bum ba dum. Yeah, and then this is so lovely here. The flute floating on the top here, right? And octaves with the oboe, so beautiful. The oboe gives the flute this wonderful character of color. It's just so great. Dum da dum, bum ba bum, dum da da, bum ba bum. The one thing that I would I wish that I had here, or wish we saw here, was a little support for your second violins that answer the the bassoon and cello thing, right, and basses. Who could possibly supply this, right? Could it be oboe? Could this right here be a second oboe, right? And then this could be first oboe, and that could be second oboe supporting this, right? These little, you know what I mean? Just feel that this needs, like, this isn't quite strong enough all by itself. Yeah. Otherwise, really beautifully balanced and beautifully colored, wonderful. Just so many Beethoven touches here. Yeah, and then this all leads forward so beautifully. I would submit to you that this that pushing forward here, with these octaves and everything else, you could bring in you could bring in maybe your F horns a little earlier, right? Or thinking like that, if the F horn's sitting on a D, right? Wait a second. Sorry. It's just too early in the morning for me to work on my transpositions. Yeah, so yeah, but just as this pushes forwards, I think that you could also have possibly, F horn anticipating what happens here but I mean, you don't need to change anything, but I just felt that there could be a little bit more. And then of course you're missing, I just feel timpani could be helping out here a lot. Right. This C could be held by the so these pitches could be played as G's on one of your F horns, and your C, one of your C horns or both C horns could be going C, E, G, and it's just right in there. It's right on their natural harmonic spectrum, right? So yeah, you'd have a little bit more push here. I don't feel that the strings are quite strong enough here, right? You could have them basically playing what the first and second violins are playing here. Right. All right, and then this leads beautifully forwards. Yeah, so lovely. That's like, there's nothing forced about this. It just is so, so natural, and so, you just you let everything flow forwards, and I just feel you did a great, just delivered a really great entry, and I'm so sorry, Andrew, that you had to wait so long for me to look at this and give you feedback. That must have been frustrating, and especially coming at the end of these evaluations 2 years later. That must be a little extra annoying, and I really apologize about that. But I just want to say that you have been a brick. You have been such a great supporter to the channel, over on Patreon, and just as a as a friend on the internet, right? And I've been so interested to see your progress and your great talent as an orchestrator, and your great feel for this, and I'm so happy that you took the time to make this so exceptional. And I think that it really, this is one of those orchestrations that really proves the experiment. I mean, not to say that they, in a way they all do, but this in particular points something out, of the possibilities of really trying to stick to the formula of being period, right, and to to find new things in it and to explore Beethoven's voice, and to also, like, I detect your own personality in these choices as well, right? And it's quite subtle, but it is, but it's also evident there for other professional orchestrators to see. So I think, you should, if there's any possible way for you to get this performed, read, whatever, maybe you could score the second movement as well and see if somebody will, play it. Some friendly conductor will put it on their program, or at least, agree to read through it or something like that, or maybe it could be submitted to a reading session, because it's really exceptional work. It's great stuff. So thank you so much for that, and thank you for your patience. And everybody out there, you know what to do. Give Andrew your best comments below. And Andrew, thank you so much for some of the comments that you have made already. If you could comment, especially a little bit more on these longa level. It would be great if all of our longa level participants could comment on each other's scores. That would be extra meaningful for me. So thanks again. Thank you, everybody, and stay tuned, because on the weekend we're going to have a sort of a Saturday Sunday back-to-back release. All right. So see you then, and following this there will be a little screen of all of those preliminary expanded evaluation points.